Hey guys, so tonight been just kind of tinkering on the Spitfire a little bit. Kind of come to a decision point as far as where the project's going to head from here. I think I mentioned before the wiring harness was scrapped, so I went ahead and pulled that and gutted the rest of the interior, with the exception of that door card that I haven't taken the time to get off, and the dashboard, because it's pretty much integral to the car. So I knew that this car had floor problems. When I bought it, I thought they were pretty solid, but basically the night we got it home, it was pretty clear that there was some serious rust towards the front of the floor pans, and of course that's gotten worse the further we've dug. Tonight I thought it would be a good idea to just take a paint marker and kind of highlight the problem spots, because the decision to make right now is, do I try to patch the floor or do I replace the whole floor pan, or pans plural. So this area is kind of one of the more concerning spots. The seat obviously bolts in right here, the driver's side seat, and as I got the seat out, I started to see places where they had used some sort of epoxy or Bondo or JB Weld to conceal a lot of the rust areas here. So I got all those off, and I've wire brushed it some, and it's come to my attention that basically this area needs to be cut out. So everywhere that I've highlighted with the marker and marked X's on is going to have to come out. This isn't really a particularly structural portion of the car. I suppose it might help in a side impact, but that's really side impact. I'm basically squished in it anyway, so it doesn't make a huge difference. But this is something that was kind of more concerning to me, is actually this corner. So I've got some rot in the lower rockers here. That's pretty trivial to take care of. Cut it out, make patches, weld it in. But this hole right here is actually where the seatbelt retains. It was held in with a big eye bolt. I'm going to change out those seatbelts to something a little bit more, I don't know, modern, but they're actually going to bolt in instead of having clips, which I think is kind of silly. I guess it was a temporary thing. But this whole area back here is Swiss cheese. This is where the suspension mounts. This is the radius arm, front end of the radius arm on each side. I'm not sure what that bolt is exactly, but there's some solid structure under here. That's the frame, I think. Yeah. So if I reach behind here, that's basically frame, and I think you can even see into that hole, if I couldn't get light in there, is actually into the frame itself. And so this is pretty crucial. Obviously, if you get in a wreck, you don't want your seatbelt flying through the car, and it is bolted. I mean, that's going into some pretty thick plate with a captive nut on the other side. The front of the car, I already knew this was coming. The front floor pans are trash. There's definitely some rot in the inner rockers as well. Those parts, I don't really see a whole lot of reason why I couldn't make some patches there. I think the floor pans are going to go up above that shelf, but I'm not positive. Obviously the pedal assemblies are going to have to come out. The flasher, that's all going to have to go. The cross member here seems like it's in pretty good shape on the driver's side. It's missing a bolt and stuff, but I'm going to try to save those. There's a hole here for drainage. That's expected, and it's just spot welded in all along this flange here. And if it has to be scrapped, that's fine. It's not a super expensive part, but the floor pans kind of are. They're gonna cost somewhere in the range of $600 to buy both floor pans by the time I factor in tax and shipping, or if I get them from the UK, it's a lot cheaper, but the shipping is obviously way more. I can get them locally and not worry about shipping, but they're more expensive. So it's debate which is the better option. The center tunnel is fine. This shelf back here is fine. Looks like some steam sealer, or probably, actually it's probably sound deadening that's been painted over. That's no big deal. We'll take all that off and put new stuff down. The passenger side floor well looks pretty decent compared to the driver's. Obviously the front's trashed. And in that top left corner of the screen, right there, there's some patches. It looks like they took some angle iron or just a plate and folded it, welded that in, and they were not very good welders. So that's gonna all come out. All the metal that they welded to is probably gonna have to come out, all the way back to that cross member. And then I've highlighted a little area there where the cross member is rotted out where it attaches to the floor. Again, on this side, it's got a lot more damage towards the back. Instead of Bondo or whatever they were using, it looks like they actually tried to weld it in. So they've captured that eye bolt there. It can't come out. I haven't taken a hammer to that stuff. I'm pretty sure it's all steel. So that's all gonna have to be welded out. I'll have to fabricate new panels. So like I said, I could buy new floors for about $600, and then I'll be on the hook for fabricating new patch panels wherever I need to. None of these are huge, so I can get by with probably an 18-inch press brake or a brake press. I can probably get by with an 18-inch sheet metal bender. Between that, my hydraulic press, my bench vise, and just hand tools, this should be fine. The cross member, you can see it's got holes on both sides, so it's actually rotten underneath there. The cross member itself is pretty much fine, other than a few inches around that hole, and it's just folded steel, so I should be able to cut and weld that in. So the option is kind of, do I buy new floors and bolt them in, weld them in, cut these out obviously first, or do I try to make new floors, or do I try to make panels? The end game of this car, well, the end game for me as a person, is that one of my life goals is to build a car from scratch, or to build a kit car. This is pretty much the next step. I've already fixed up some old cars. I've restored my Mercedes. This is a full rebuild now. The car went from being a rolling restoration to a full rebuild pretty much overnight. As soon as I found the wiring was scrap and started getting this stuff out, I realized that it's not going to be on the road anytime soon. I was kind of joking that it had a 3-month rolling window, so at any given point it'd be 3 months until it gets on the road and 3 years till it's restored. So right now it's more like a year to get it on the road, and that's fine. I have time. Money's not necessarily unlimited, but we can make it work. So yeah, this video doesn't really have a whole lot of a point or an objective to it. Sometimes it helps to talk things through, and right now I'm leaning towards buying new floors and then fabricating the rest as I need to, or replacing what I have to. None of this has to be pretty, but it needs to be pretty strong. The floor is, from what I could tell, 19 gauge steel, as is I think the rest of the car, which is kind of puny. I've got some 16 gauge plate back here, and I can almost bend that by hand. It's pretty thick. 19 gauge is quite a bit thinner. So if I step there, some places I don't think the film's going to show it, but I can feel the floor flexing. So yeah, what do you do here? I'm not trying to get discouraged here. I just needed to think this through, and I thought having some video might help me out. Having some audio, and I'll grab pictures. Things that I can do right away, though, even without spending any more money, is the transmission is going to come out. I think it's in good shape, but the clutch is an unknown, and the clutch was only $100, so I've got a brand new clutch, pressure plate, throwout bearing, all that fun stuff. and I've got new transmission mounts, I've got new motor mounts, so might as well do that. I've got new U-joints. There's one here, and then there's one somewhere back in there, actually even further back. I've got new e-brake stuff going in. I gotta finish restoring that and get some new parts for that. I might still try to pull the dash out. I'm gonna pull the heater core. It's back there, that black box. I'm gonna pull that out, make sure it's okay, make sure it's not, I mean, it could be completely corroded, I doubt it, but the door retaining strap, it needs to be worked on. I know I'm gonna need a new radiator. I'd like to put an aluminum one in. This one's got some weeping down at the bottom. You can see there it's wet, and it hasn't been run in 4 months, so it's just standing water, standing coolant. There's still that problem, the acne, where they did a really bad repair. There's also at least 3 of the 4 corners of the rear fenders need to be cut out and re-welded. They had done window screen and Bondo basically to patch those. That's not gonna fly. The trunk's in good shape. I just kind of was curious what this was. I think that's the exhaust hanger, but it had a whole bunch of sealant around it, which is fine, but I wanted to get it out and see what was going on there. If that was, it doesn't look like it was aftermarket or anything. I think that's just how it was from the factory. The spare tire would sit right here, so you'd never see this anyway. So, yeah. So the next step is basically I need to pull the doors off the car. I need to make sure that they've got reasonable gaps, and then I'm gonna have to brace. Probably, I'm probably gonna bracket the bolts in place of this catch, and another bracket that bolts in place of this, well, bolts in place of the hinges up there. It's kind of going to be a 2-person job to get the door off. But I don't want, when I'm starting to get all this loose, I don't want the weight of the door, I don't want it hinging in as I'm opening the door. I don't have to work around it for one thing. But if the door is, you know, being pushed down by gravity, it's going to try to push this whole footwell area in. And if I have to do reconstructive surgery there, that's a bad thing. So I'll get the doors off and I'll brace. I'll probably do like an A-frame in the door gap. Make sure that the gaps are reasonable. Of course, this was not a, you know, Mercedes from the factory, or not even really Volkswagen quality probably. They didn't make these things that well, so. But yeah, that's kind of how it's going. People are advising me online to take the body off the chassis, but it's not really an option when you're in a 1-car garage and it's an apartment, so I can't just wheel the chassis out and leave it out there. So it's going to be more work to do this, whatever I end up doing. If I try to patch this, what I'll probably end up doing is, instead of investing so much money in parts, I can invest it in tools and then just buy sheet metal. And that's going to mean a metal brake, a bead roller, and some auto body tools. Those are all things that I'd like to have anyway, so that I can reform those ridges. They don't have to be exactly like that, but they need to be strong. Because, well, in an accident, that's kind of holding you into the car. So, I don't know. We'll just keep chugging on it. Yeah, I think I've probably pointed it out, but the front suspension is done, short of hooking up the brakes. I do have a little hole here to patch that corner. This is all baking soda. There's definitely some dry battery acid, so I just put some baking soda on it to try to neutralize it. I don't know if that works or if I need to add liquid, but yeah, clean that out, shop vac it, and degrease it, and I'll patch that little hole. It's not really a big deal. There's a couple of drain holes here that go into the car, which is just weird. I would assume that those should have plugs in them, but I don't know. With new batteries, you don't have to worry about so much battery acid leaking, especially if I put a AGM battery in it. I'm gonna have to make new panels for these heat shields. Not really sure what I want to do that out of. Maybe aluminum, maybe ABS plastic. But yeah, thanks for watching. Sorry to ramble.